Welcome back to Street Scene Power Hour. I'm Greg Roden, the editor and whatever else for Street Scene. We have Rick Guerrera, our Street Scene host, and we also have Larry Ward, Street Scene Power Hour host. And, you know, we're going to welcome a couple guests here with us. We have Ted Guthrie. He is the co-owner of the Vintage Movement, and legendary Carl Slagle. And Carl is the Car Care Show host for 570 WKBN. Welcome, everyone, to Street Scene Power Hour.
Welcome, guys.
Thank you for the invitation. We appreciate it.
Carl, you never looked so good, Carl.
Thank you so much, Rick. I really do appreciate those kind words from you.
We're having a little problem with Carl's camera, but you know what? The podcast part of it, you don't need it anyway. So we'll just listen to Carl's knowledge, and we just won't see his face for this part of it. But you know what? We're going to start off. Larry, why don't you take it away? We're going to start off with a little bit with Ted Guthrie, and anybody can jump in at any point and comment at this point. If you want to watch, you listen to the Street Scene Power Hour. It's on Buzzsprout, and you can also watch the Street Scene Power Hour on Armstrong Neighborhood Channel, Channel 20 on Armstrong Cable. So Larry, take it away from me.
All right, thanks, Greg. First of all, I'd like to remind Carl that we both got our positions on the radio because we are affectionately known as We Have Faces for Radio.
That's exactly why my camera is not working right now.
That's it.
Can I shake your camera off, Larry?
Yeah. Oh, no. I'm ready to turn it off now.
Make you feel at home, Larry.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, it's my pleasure to introduce Ted Guthrie. Ted is the former past president of the Ohio Valley BSA Owners Club. He's also part owner of the Vintage Movement, which deals in restoration, and I mean complete from ground up restoration on vintage motorcycles and repairs of all types and makes of motorcycles. Ted also is a very accomplished off-road rider. I take a lot of my suggestions and instructions and things, and I consider Ted a good, valuable resource for a lot of things that I want to do. And I'd like to welcome Ted to the Street Scene Power Hour. Ted, how you doing?
Hey, just fine, and thanks very much for having me on, guys.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Now, one of the reasons I've asked Ted is he gets into various projects out at the Vintage Movement. And one of the things that I wanted to talk to Ted about, maybe in another segment, is an excellent person at wheel building. If you've ever tried to put spokes in a wheel, it's very easily to get frustrated. But one of the other things that I come across quite a bit often is a lot of guys, especially buying older motorcycles from the 60s and 70s. The bike's gone through maybe 5 or 8 owners, and somewhere along the line, the title has been lost. And that might not even be a vintage bike. It might have been a newer bike in the 90s or early 2000s. And I wanted to talk to Ted because he has an off-road motorcycle that did not have a title. It originally did, but by the time Ted got it, it didn't. And he was able to go through a procedure which allowed him to make the off-road motorcycle street legal, which meant it has working headlight, taillight, brake light, turn signals, and an operating horn, and also to be able to title it. So Ted, why don't you talk a little bit about your motorcycle and walk us through some of the steps that you did that was able to make this thing not only street legal, but to have a title.
Yes, thank you, Larry. So, folks, for years and years, we've basically been dabbling with the same thing, and that is we're riding little trail bikes that are basically street legal and yet can be taken on the trails. Now, of course, many motorcycles then and now do come fully equipped from the manufacturer to be street legal. They got the turn signals on them, battery, horn, everything you need. You just take your title and go right down to the DMV and get yourself a plate. But of course, throughout all this process, we've been kind of trying to find a middle ground, trying to find bikes that are going to be as effective as possible off-road, but still able to be used on the highway, at least on back roads to get from trail section to trail section, that thing, sort of thing. So therein lies the challenge. So what if you have elected to not purchase a motorcycle that's street legal from the factory, but you'd like to do a conversion, more or less? So basically, right here, we're looking at an example of, well, the exact motorcycle that I own. It's a little KDX 200 Kawasaki. And what you're seeing there are some rudimentary lights, which means that the bike is quote unquote enduro legal. There's a lot of gray area there, but these machines are basically equipped for off-road competition that involves some going down the roadway, once again in between trail sections. Now, such a bike might be considered quite ideal for an enthusiast who wants a really off-road capable machine, but that can still be qualified as street legal. So how do you go about making the transition? Well, this happens to be an older bike. Mine is a 93. Hey, I'm into the older machines, so basically I started out with something like that, which, as Larry indicated, over the years, hey, the off-road manufacturer's title had come up missing and just simply didn't exist. So what I did with just basic information, such as a bill of sale from the individual I purchased the bike from, along with basic model and VIN number, went down to the local title department and explained the situation. And those folks were good enough to basically create for me a new off-road, non-street legal title. So good start. Then I set about converting that bike to be set up for fully street legal status. Now, fortunately, these days, there's a lot of folks who are doing just that. And in turn, then there are manufacturers who are producing little turnkey kits that can be utilized to accomplish just what we're talking about. Now, the manufacturer that I settled upon is a company called TUSK. I purchased such a kit, and runs about $200. Very comprehensive. Basically, everything you need to bolt on the components to convert one of these little off-road bikes to street legal status. You get a complete wiring.
One more time. You cut out there. Say that one more time. What was the name of the manufacturer there?
Manufacturer of the product is Tusk. That is TUSK.
Okay.
And I happen to go through the source of Rocky Mountain ATV, some really excellent folks there. But anyway, this kit is fully comprehensive with a complete wiring harness, ready to plug in, turn signals, horn, brake light switches, a battery, everything you need except, now you'll note on the little KDX that it already had a factory headlight and tail light. Now the Tusk kit supplements those existing components. So it's an add-on, which it isn't the only way. It just happens to be a kit for this particular adaptation, for a bike that already has a lighting coil and already has its own headlight. So in effect, the Tusk kit adapts right into the bike's existing electrical system, ties right in, gives you everything you need, switches everything you could possibly want and need, and then some. And then, with that having been done, I went back to the Title Bureau with the documentation for this purchase of the Tusk kit and indicated to those folks that I had indeed converted the motorcycle to street legal condition. Now, they basically took that information, had me sign an affidavit saying that I am taking responsibility for the fact that this machine is now highway legal. They generated then from there a highway legal title based on my off-road title. And from that point on, along with signing off, assuring that I had insurance on the bike, went down to the DMV, got my plate, and I was in business. So basically what you have there is a fully street legal machine by the letter of the law. Now keep in mind, of course, you take a look at that picture of the little KDX, even with little miniature turn signals on there and that sort of thing, yeah, that's still a dirt bike. So what you have to keep in mind is basically, as the owner and operator of the machine, you are in effect taking responsibility for this bike being street legal. Say, for example, you take the tires. Now, there are such things as DOT street legal knobby tires. You're going to equip the bike accordingly. Is a law enforcement officer going to stop you and scrutinize the bike that carefully? These are all the things that you're basically taking responsibility for as the owner. And keeping in mind, this is not a machine you're really setting up for regular day-to-day operation, going to the store, that sort of thing. This is really intended as a very off-road capable motorcycle that is also street legal and enables you to do your thing on the back roads and get to where you need to go without trailering the bike every inch of the way. And that, in effect, is the long and the short of it right there.
Well, I've got a couple questions, Ted, if I could. First of all, how many bikes have you converted from not having a title to having an off-road title, which certainly is a lot easier than trying to just jump right into the street?
In general, I have done so with several machines.
Okay, and you've never had an issue. The second thing I'd point out is there are several tests. There's Baja Designs, there's Tusk, and some others. And the difference is, as Ted pointed out, that some of these motorcycles that are already equipped with a headlight and a tail light, but not a stoplight, they have a lighting coil into the stator, which will allow you to rev up the bike and keep the lights on. But there are some bikes that you might have to convert from an enduro without lights to putting a headlight and a taillight, and Baja Designs and some other companies make them where they're complete, where you'll not only get the front headlight, the tail light, the brake light switch, the horn, but you'll also get a battery. And of course, you won't have any way of charging the battery, so the battery is strictly used to power the lights and the turn signals. And for those occasions on a bike like that, what you're really doing is like an event Roy and I did down in Logan, Ohio, called the Hanging Rock 200, where you'll have to come off of a rocky trail up in the mountains and come down onto a road and then traverse the road to another section of off-roading. And while you're on that road, you need to be street legal, or at least the appearance of street legal. There are some bikes, though, like if you look at the Yamaha YZF 250 and 400s, that some of those other models have lighting coils built into them. So then it's very easy to be able to convert and put lights on it and that. But certainly a worthwhile endeavor. What would you say your time and your costs were, Ted, in converting this bike from non-titled enduro to street legal title?
Well, beyond the cost of the kit itself, which is close to about $200, there is some certain level of diligence that is involved in making it all come together. That is, once again, we're adapting to the existing motorcycle's headlight, and all that needs to be tied together with, in this case, the Tusk kit. Now, in addition, we see things like, this bike is going to have fully functional brake lights, front and rear. Now, to accomplish that, you can see in the picture of the little KDX, it has hydraulic disc brakes front and back. How is that done? Well, you're basically piggybacking into the hydraulic system with these very clever little switches that are provided by the manufacturer of the kit. So you're breaking into a hydraulic braking system, you're adding into it, later has to be bled out. And in addition, keep in mind that machines such as the little KDX there, very compact, very, very purpose-built. Not a lot of extra space and leftover room for this componentry. So sometimes you have to be quite clever in placement of the materials, the components that are involved in the system. Now, like the KDX there, I have, there's a little battery, little dry cell battery. I've got it hidden under the seat. There's a voltage regulator and a horn. I have them hidden behind the headlight nacelle. And of course, once again, I had to adapt into the existing headlight system. Now, in the case of this little bike, it didn't even have a high-low beam switch. I had to actually create that. So yes, there is a little bit of fabrication involved, all depending on the individual machine. It's as comprehensive a kit as it could possibly be. And as Larry indicated, Baja Designs is another good one. But, you follow the instructions carefully. You apply yourself accordingly. Basically, everything is there to make it happen. And believe me, these systems really do work. And Larry did hit on another good point. This is powered by a dry cell system. That is, the headlight's still powered by the bike's lighting coil, but all the rest of the stuff is powered by a dry cell battery, which is not rechargeable through the bike's electrical system. The little battery must be maintained separately, but the very, very low voltage output of LED lighting systems are so low, those batteries last for months and months. And even if you ride the bike on a periodic basis, chances are you won't have to charge that battery only periodically. You can always order an extra battery. They're quite inexpensive, very effective plug-in operation. These things are just about as foolproof as they could possibly be, should you have some basic rudimentary mechanical skills.
Okay, sounds
And those
good.
batteries, Greg, they have come a long way now. I mean,
Yeah.
used to be wet and flooded. Now they're, instead of weighing 10 or 12 pounds, they weigh something like maybe almost a pound. So they're small, you can tuck them in pretty much anywhere. And with either electric start or a kickstart, they work well with both. So I think that was a great tutorial, Ted. I want to thank you very much for helping out on that.
Hey,
know
Ted,
what? Go ahead,
how
Rick.
how much we talking to buy a bike like that?
Well, you're talking to the ultimate cheapskate here, guys. Keeping in mind, of course,
No, that's me.
No,
my-
Carl wins, right?
I take that. I take that honor right there.
My little KDX is a $600 motorcycle, but that was an exceptional deal and everything. Hey, there's lots of stuff like this that's out there. Expect to pay upwards of about $2,500 maybe for a really nice example, but it varies. Let's face it. I mean, these are
Sure.
off-road machines. Some of them seen some pretty hard use. Others have been, treated fairly gently, but it's overall, it's a pretty low investment for
Sure,
a lot
that's-
of enjoyment.
Yeah,
These
that's
are
not much
fun,
at all. Yeah.
lightweight, super easy to ride motorcycles, and they really get the job done off-road. And then, of course, with the addition of one of these dual sport kits, there you go. You've just broadened the capability of the machine, make it just that much more versatile.
Good.
How many cc's we talking there?
A whopping 200 cc's, guys.
200?
But I'll tell you what, with a 6-speed transmission and a little bit of overgearing, the little bike will cruise 45 miles an hour all day long. And
In the dirt, that's fine. Yeah.
you need to
That's great.
go. I mean, you can wick it up to about 60, but by and large, very capable, all things considered.
You know, Ted, when I first started out, I riding motorcycles. This was back in the 60s. I started out with a 125 Yamaha, believe it or not. And we did dirt riding. That was plenty back then. You know, I was a young kid at the time. I was a teenager. And then I went up to a 250, and that was plenty. That was plenty for the dirt. It was a lot of fun.
Yep, indeed. These type of little machines were very popular then, very popular now. I mean, they speak for themselves. They're fairly lightweight and small, fun to ride, really easy to maintain, take care of, and they still get you where you need to go.
How about finding parts? Can you find parts for it?
Yes, indeed. The popularity and length of time that these machines were produced by the various manufacturers mean that just about anything you want or need is readily available. Of course, these days too, there's big companies like Rocky Mountain ATV that have some fantastic websites. You go on there, parts are really easy to look up, find, identify. Plus, of course, there's always eBay. The source is just about endless. If you look diligently enough, chances are you'll find anything you need for just about anything in the, we say, modern era from the 60s and 70s on.
How about, are the young kids nowadays, are they still doing the dirt bikes, or are they doing the quads more or less?
Well, it's interesting. That's come fairly full circle, Rick. Of course, you know, when we were kids, it was all about having a trail bike.
Sure. I love mine.
The thing didn't even exist, you know. So we were all about that sort of thing. And then along came the ATV revolution, you know, the 3-wheelers and the 4-wheelers.
Sure.
Very popular. Definitely broadened the versatility of the machines. And then the side-by-sides come along. Hey, you can get the whole family involved. But it's interesting that as enjoyable as that is, and they certainly have their place in the market, very large place in the market, I don't think the trail bikes and this sort of thing have ever gone out of style. They're just as popular as younger riders, older riders. Everybody seems to enjoy something like this. Dual sport riding, as we call it today, enduro bikes, as we called them back in the old days, never gone out of popularity. Bikes are very versatile, a lot of fun, pretty much do anything with them. And for a lot of folks, that's all the machine they want or need. They're not looking for a race bike. They're not really into motocross or anything. They just want a little bike they can jump on, fire up, go for a ride around the neighborhood, down the trails, what have you. Speaks for itself.
I'd love to get back on one. I always think about, boy, I'd love to go back in the dirt a little bit, but at my age, I'd probably kill myself, you know?
Nonsense. We've got some guys ride with us all the time, make you look like a pup.
Oh, yeah. I like to jump and everything. That was so much fun.
And besides, the vintage movement stands by to provide for anything you may need or want.
Mhm.
Ted, I have a
Ted, if I can
question
jump in
for you,
real quick for two really quick things. Tell us really quickly about the vintage movement and what you guys do out there and how somebody can get a hold of you, because we've seen some bikes that are pretty nice where the owners want to change them completely back to the original paint. So tell us about the vintage movement and how to get a hold of you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Larry. Now, the vintage movement is nothing more than myself and Bob Wenzel, just a couple of enthusiasts from way back who've been riding and working on bikes for years and years. And we happen to be really into the vintage motorcycles, of course. So all we've done is Bob and I have combined our efforts, our facilities, and the motorcycles that we own and work on. And hey, we just dabble a little bit on the side. We fix up bikes, we make them available to folks. We just like tinkering. We do some full-on restorations, a lot of other stuff. We just fix up and make them available to folks who may be looking for a fun older motorcycle, something they may remember from back in the day, or they had at one time or wanted at one time. And you know, again, it's just a little side endeavor for us two old guys, but at the same time, we're making it happen. So, hey, you can check us on Facebook, folks. That's the Vintage Movement. We do also have a website. It's vintage-movement.org.
Okay. It sounds like you got a lot going on too. Want to remind everybody you're watching or you're listening. Let me say listening. You're listening to the podcast of Street Scene Power Hour on Buzzsprout and a lot of your other media platforms. And you can also watch this on Armstrong Neighborhood Channel. And Ted, it sounds like there's a lot of work involved in, you know, converting that over, but at least it's available. It seems like, you know, back, you know, at least they have seems like a lot of plug and play kits these days that you can just do that. But I'm sure there's a lot more involved from what you thought, what it sounds like.
Ted, I had a question for you, if I might interject here a little bit.
Carl.
What areas are you allowed to ride these motorcycles in, and can you give us a little bit of perhaps hints where we could take the motorcycle to ride once we have everything established and have it rebuilt? Are there certain particular areas you can ride or cannot ride?
Anywhere you can get away with, Carl.
That's my kind of sport.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Now, fortunately, these days, once again, the whole thing with the enduro motorcycles, the dual sport motorcycles, as we call them, more popular than ever before. And as a result, there's a tremendous amount of support for these type of activities. Now, there are events all over our area, all over Southern Ohio, for example, over into PA. All you have to do is go online. There are some excellent sources of information. Just type in dual sport into your computer. It'll lead you to all sorts of sources of information. There are regional groups that are involved, national groups that are involved, any level you want to take it to, plenty of support, lots of opportunities to ride, lots of like-minded individuals. And you know, the really neat thing about the whole dual sporting thing, no restrictions, no limitations. You got younger people, older people, experienced people, inexperienced, old bikes, new bikes, you name it. Pretty much everything and anything goes. Very low cost to get yourself involved. And the whole idea is to just simply go out there and have fun. So it's a means to provide folks, as Carl suggested, somewhere to go with machines like this and enjoy them for what they were built for, or how you've modified them for.
Awesome. You know, let's flip over to Carl real quick here. Carl, you've been in this business of fixing and doing everything mechanical for how long?
I actually was a service manager, worked at Columbiana Chevrolet for 30 years. And from there, I went to a couple small garages and worked there for several years also. So I probably got a total of around 40, 45 years in automobile repairs.
And as Ted said, there's a lot of stuff that's changed over the years. I just thinking, talking about dry cell batteries and how LED lighting can actually really reduce the power consumption from a battery. And, you know, the old 6-volt incandescent bulbs and all this stuff that we've all dealt with for years, it's amazing how that's changed and the technology has changed.
The entire automobile industry is going to change here within the next 20 years, I'd say, as far as electric goes. And I think we are definitely headed toward electric automobiles. And the technology that we have now with the batteries that we have are just tremendous. I mean, you know, we're not the first electric vehicles built. The first electric vehicles were built back in the 1800s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, over 100 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, was an electric car. So it's going to be. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be in the business for long enough to see the automatic transmission come to fruition, air conditioning, cruise control, all the amenities, the backup cameras, the side marker lights, everything. I've been fortunate enough to be in the business long enough to see all this come to fruition.
The round wheel.
Hopefully, pardon me.
The round wheel instead of the square one.
Yes, instead of the square wheel. Yes, that was probably the biggest innovation.
Don't forget the cup holders too. You know?
Cup holders, they're never large enough. You know,
Right.
It's like my wife and I went out in a Jeep today. She's got a Jeep Wrangler 4-door, and we had to go a couple places today. And I said, you know, the only thing I don't like about this is the cup holders are not big enough.
Yeah.
They're inconvenient.
That's it. Hey, Carl,
You never used to think of things like that.
What do you think of the new electric vehicles? What do you think they're going to stick around? They are definitely going to stick around, but what do you think of them?
They're going to be around forever, and I have some reservations. Safety, for one. You got a very low center of gravity on these because most of the batteries basically are in the bottom of the vehicle. There's a crate that carries the batteries. So I have yet to see or to look at many crash tests. I would be interested in crash tests, considering how safe our cars are right now. I would be interested in seeing some of the crash tests in the future here to see exactly how safe these cars are. Because if you got 1,000 pounds of batteries moving forward and it stops all of a sudden, something has to happen. I was fortunate enough to go to Latonia out here. We have the Commerce Park. They have a aluminum extrusion company out there right now called Penex. And I was fortunate enough to take a tour of it so I could see what was happening. They happen to have, they make some crush panels out there out of aluminum for these particular cars. It's kind of interesting to see how those crush panels are made and what they're expected to do. They're aluminum crush panels in the front bumpers and in the back bumpers. So it's very interesting to see. And I'm going to be quite excited about what's coming, to tell you the truth. I think it's going to be really cool. Can you imagine pulling up to a Mustang? You know, they got Mustangs right now on Market Street and saying, okay, you know, I got this 427 Chevy sitting here, and this quiet Mustang just takes off and leaves you.
It just leaves you. It's unbelievable how fast they are, you know?
They're quick. They're
Unbelievable.
very quick. Yes.
You know what Ted did? Ted and Larry, more than anybody here. What do you think about electric motorcycles? What are your thoughts if that's coming around or not?
Well, a couple years ago, when I covered the Daytona 200, they did a special race for electric powered motorcycles. And that probably is about 4 years ago. So they're not, back then, you know, it's like almost like doing digital. What happens today is changed for tomorrow. But it was eerie because those things were instant on power. You had electromotive force. EMF is the braking portion of this thing and regenerating, but the power is almost instantaneous. So riding the thing is a lot different than riding a gasoline powered motorcycle. And you don't have the same braking, you don't have the same throttling, but the one thing it left me with is the whirling kind of sound as it come in through the infield and then accelerated out. It was totally different. And they've been racing these bikes. There's a special race in the Isle of Man for electric motorcycles, but they're god-awful fast, unbelievably fast. And takes some difference.
I don't even know how do you hang on to those.
How long's the batteries last on this?
You know what? This isn't an endurance like you would have a Tesla going 200 miles. You're going to go like the Daytona 200 is like 70 laps. So
Okay.
most races that these guys are going to be in, they're 14 to 20 laps. We haven't.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. And if you're racing on the Isle of Man, that's a much longer course, but certainly they don't
I never,
have any battery changes.
I never realized how long the Isle of Man has been around. That's been around for what, since the early 1900s?
Oh yeah.
I never realized that until I was reading up on it recently, and I go, "Wow, I can't believe it's been here that long."
Well, you know what? Go ahead, Ted. What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, I
I
certainly have to agree with Larry that the performance capabilities of electric
the guys that ride
machines are just unbelievable. In fact, Bob and I had a little electric observed trials motorcycle out of the move the thing, just ride it from one place to the other in the shop, and it took off so strongly, almost stuck my head through the wall. Speaking from personal perspective, guys, I love engineering. I love new stuff, but at the same time, I am so old school. I would just have a very, very hard time letting go of my old machines, especially my old two-strokes. I'm a big two-stroke fan, always will be. So it's going to be a hard transition for me.
You know what,
Well,
Carl?
it's going to be a hard transition for me also, because sitting inside that car and listening to that 350 or 454 rumble or 427 rumble, it's going to be awful hard not to hear that thing accelerate, and just be quiet. I agree 100%, because part of the classic car thing now is sitting in it, and as far as I'm concerned, and listening to it. I mean, there's nothing like a hot rod on the road that has a
Nothing like that V8 rumble under you.
Exactly.
You'll never replace that. Carl, from a personal perspective, a few years ago, we put a 347 stroker in our old family 66 Mustang coupe. And I got to tell you, you take one ride in that car, and if you don't get excited the way that little thing performs, man, you're missing a boat.
Exactly.
I've always said this, and I still to this day say it. I love everything car related. I don't care what brand it is. I like them all. But there's nothing that sounds as good as a 302 with Flowmasters on it. Nothing in the world.
You're right. They really do sound good. I mean, I even like some of the kids' tuners they got out there right now. They're kind of cool.
You got to appreciate them. Yeah,
they're very quick. Yeah. So
my son's into them now. My son's got tuners, and it's amazing what they can pull out of these things. Carl, you've been around forever on these things, and when you had the muscle car era. And then you go back and then the gas crunch and killed horsepower. And now, what are your thoughts? Like what you're pulling this horsepower out of these 4-cylinders, even?
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
These turbocharged 4-cylinders are just unreal. My son's working with a good friend of his. It's got a 4-cylinder Dodge, and running 9 seconds. I mean, to create that much boost, to get that thing going from out of 4 cylinders going that fast, 9-second quarter mile is pretty quick. It's to the point where, it's just unbelievable. I mean, things come apart when that happens sometimes, but the durability is just unbelievable of some of these little 4-cylinder engines. It's just unbelievable.
And those cars probably weigh nothing too, a couple of 1,000 pounds, I would imagine, 2,500 pounds. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you get some of the dragsters out there. Look at those things. I mean, just the amount of horsepower. 10,000 horsepower they're putting through some of these things. You go a quarter mile, 313 miles an hour.
You got to appreciate all these guys.
Can't blink to get into that.
Yeah. You got to appreciate all these guys, like the tuners and all these guys with the low riders and the hot rods, everything. They're all car guys. So you gotta love them.
Yeah, I love it.
They just, a lot of people don't like, I don't like them because they got this and that. But I've got a different sense on things now since we've been doing the show. And I'll tell you what, I love almost everything right now. And it's pretty cool what they do to cars.
Well, the reason we brought Power Hour together, when we started doing this is, we were doing street scene. And, Rick and I are kind of, I know next to nothing about motorcycles, but I've learned so much from Larry and Ted and even Rick, and it's amazing. But the reason we brought this show together is we're all one bunch. We're all motorheads. and maybe electric heads soon.
Electric heads.
Well,
Yeah.
That's going to be a good
brought
one.
Larry on board here because that we're all trying to, in the long run, save this hobby we've got. It's God knows what's going to happen to the gasoline motors.
And that's why I built my car when I built it. I was fortunate enough to find an old car at a decent price, like a second owner of a Malibu. I knew some people that had junkyards and whatever to found an engine for it, did the body work on it, had friends help. I did my car on a budget basis, going into this, telling everybody that, you can do this on a budget basis and not take a whole lot of money out of the family coffers and still have fun with it. And my basic concern was I wanted a car that I could drive and have fun in. And maybe it could go fast, but it doesn't have to. But you could drive it, have fun, and it doesn't matter where you parked it. So, you're not concerned about, well, somebody's going to look at it or, somebody's going to bump it. I don't care. It's a car that I want to drive. That's why I built it, and that's why I built it on a budget.
What do you got, Carl?
My 78, I got a 78 Malibu.
Okay.
And it originally had a 6-cylinder in it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I found a 350, and it had a 350 transmission already in it. So that part was complete. I had a friend do the body work, the paint on it. We put the engine in, and it just, I have a ball driving it, Rick.
That's all it's about. Yep. Have fun with it.
Yeah, and I do. And that's what I do almost every weekend. And during the week, I'll drive it too. And that's what it's for. I built it to drive it. And I'm a firm believer in that. I believe if you build something, it just doesn't sit in the garage all the time. You need to drive it.
Yep.
Carl, I got one question for you, Carl.
Sure.
Out of all the years of doing this, what is one of the worst things you've seen a car manufacturer come out with? Being repair-wise or anything like that?
A Pinto.
Oh, man. Well, Yugo was a real mistake.
Oh, wow. That's a good one there.
You mean the rear defroster that kept your hands warm when you're pushing it along?
Exactly.
Boy, were those bad.
That was a pretty bad mistake right there. And I hate to say it, but sometimes the old Vegas with the head gasket Vegas and the fenders falling off weren't real good either. So, and I hate to say it, but I own one of them brand new. But those two would come to mind right away.
I've always been curious about that question for long. Known you.
I've always wondered, and of course, with the fuel injection being so prevalent in the cars, but I remember standing at the Canfield Fair in 1970, looking at that first Vega, and finding out that it didn't have any cylinder liners, that it was a silicone sprayed-in bore, and that the fuel pump was in the gas tank. And there was no way to get to the fuel pump without dropping the gas tank. And I went,
most of them these days.
Yeah, and so I understand the need for the pressure and understand for the pump to be cooled through the gas. But, certainly, how much effort would it take for somebody to just put a little square hatch right over where the fuel pump goes so you can just pull the back seat, pull the cover, turn the ring, and pull out the pump?
They don't want you to do that. They want you to take it to Carl.
Yes, exactly. That's how I make my living. And that's how I make my living.
There is a Ford that does that. You could go through the trunk, I'm pretty sure, and there's that little patch there. You pull it up, and there's the fuel pump right there.
Yeah, some Buicks and I think some Fords have that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though, we've got some new models that are out. I tend to be a Chevy guy with the Corvettes, but I drive a Mustang every day, and I really like it. But I've seen the photos of this new Bronco, and boy, it looks good. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that.
Yeah, what?
Really
I
nice.
first thought, you know what it is? I like the Broncos. I like the two-door Broncos, but you know what the four-door Broncos remind me of? My son has an 02 Ford Escape, and the body, the cladding, the plastic cladding looks exactly like it. It's an 02 Escape. I was like, I know that, and I understand why they have to make the four doors just for sales reasons. But,
Make them lighter, more fuel efficient. Carl, what do you think about them?
I think they're a pretty nice looking vehicle, to tell you the truth. I'd like to have the opportunity to drive one. I may just do that here pretty soon. but it looks like it's very functional. It kind of looks like on the lines of a Land Rover, to tell you the truth.
Yeah,
exactly. I didn't picture it as the old Broncos, and I recall the old Broncos in my day, but it looks like it's a very sturdy vehicle, and it looks like it's built for off-road, and I like that. I mean, we got so many people out there in four-wheel drive vehicles that have never seen off-road at all, and to me, that's a waste. That's just a waste. I thought the first time I took my truck off the road, I got a Chevy Silverado, a four-wheel drive Chevy Silverado, and it's like my buddy's got a boat in the backyard he needs towed out. Can you think your Silverado can do it? I said, I hope it can. I'm taking it off the road. When I go hunting, I take the truck off the road. I mean, that's what it's for. I like to see that happen more often, to tell you the truth.
I think Ford did a good job on the designing of that Bronco, but I don't like what Chevy did with the Blazer. It's like,
I agree.
It just looks like an SUV to me. And it's like, come on now.
That's a disgrace to the Blazer name to me.
Tell you what, those Blazers are pretty peppy. My middle son has
fast.
And they're fast. They're fast.
But I thought they should have stayed with the style of old age, though. The young, the 70s and 80s style.
But Rick, if you look at all the cars now, if you go the other day, your friend of mine, Bill Billette, and I met up for an adult beverage the other day, and he parked in the parking lot the same as I parked. I had my truck. He had his SUV, and we looked in the parking lot, and I said, Bill, then look at all these cars out here and tell me what they are. You can't tell them apart unless you look. They all
look alike. Yep.
The emblems on them, they all look alike, every one of them, and they all make three sizes: small, medium, and large.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, there's no distinct styling to different cars now that I see.
Of course, I guess with all the restrictions they have to follow by, now it's really it does restrict how they design the cars anymore with all the laws and the what they have, what the designers and the car manufacturers have to follow, and it's sad because it's not like anybody back in the 40s, 50s, 60s put a pad of paper down. I did this. I did a clay model, and we're building it, no matter what it was.
You're right. It's not like John DeLorean or Lee Iacocca looking at something anymore. Okay, there's no style to it. It's made, in defense of the car manufacturers, they have to build a safe vehicle. Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Oh yeah, that's the first thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, safety is the biggest thing. I don't know if you guys have had the pleasure of having an airbag go off in your face to save your life, but I have.
Not yet.
And I can tell you, I was very well blessed to have it go off because if not, I'd eat the steering wheel. So, as far as the technology comes for safety features, I am one. I'll be on the bus for that because I agree with that 100%.
Exactly.
Here's a question for all you guys. What's your favorite new car out there right now? What comes to mind?
Corvette.
The Corvette. That's a beautiful car. You know that? I'm not much of a Corvette fan, but I'll tell you what. I think they hit it right on the button on this one. They did a nice job on that.
I do too. That center engine car, that's just the cat's meow as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And for the price you pay for that, can you imagine you pay 3 times as much, you're not going to get that car.
Yeah,
right.
You're talking around $100,000 for a Corvette, a nice one, and you go to Ferrari, all the other ones, and Maserati. You're up there. You're up there. A lot of money. Porsches are way up there. Yeah, Bugattis.
All right, Ted, I'm going to put you on the spot. What's your choice on a new one?
Well, I'm a truck guy. I like the new trucks, but generally speaking, once again, I'm such an old school, incredible cheapskate. If I happen to go by a car dealership's lot and glance over at the window stickers, I end up gouging my eyes out and running away from the place.
It's ridiculous how much they cost. Oh my God! And they sell them too, And some of these trucks are out there $70,000, $80,000, $90,000, and they sell them. Yeah.
Yes.
But they are fabulous pieces of equipment, incredible engineering, considerable durability. I mean, hey, let's face it, guys. It wasn't all that long ago. We were happy and lucky to get 100,000 miles out of an automobile. That was a real feat. And nowadays, 100,000 miles. I mean,
it's nothing. It's nothing.
You're looking at 200,000 miles. Keep the rust away from them. So we've got a lot of very, very good design and engineering support. in these modern products. And, you know, again, things like fuel injection and super efficient and effective ignition systems. Hey, raise your hand if you had to push start a car in the wintertime to get it going, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or even in the summertime.
Hey,
Yeah.
Carl, raise your hand, right?
My hand is raised several times.
They turn that key, they start up every time. Fuel injection, fantastic, right?
It is. It really is.
Modern
Yep.
electronic ignition systems, fantastic. And last time you changed a set of points and plugs, man, that used to be a regular basis in the old days.
Sure.
My Mustangs,
Right.
I put plugs in it every 2 weeks, you know?
Yeah, you're exactly right. The winter plugs and summer plugs. I remember a lot of times we'd have people come into the shop, you know, in the early years, and I need my choke adjusted for the winter. It's like, wow, I'm glad this is never going to have to happen again.
You got
How about,
that right.
how about modern tire technology, Carl? Remember bias ply tires? Remember how awful they were?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know what? You
Noisy,
couldn't let your car set because it would get lumps in the tires.
Yep.
These
All right,
days
Larry.
we've got these beautiful all-weather, all-season radios. They're fantastic, you know?
Love it.
How about
Right,
you,
Larry?
Larry? What's your favorite car?
Well, I can tell you that last October, I had a chance to be an instructor for an entry-level group. It was the National Council of Corvette Club Owners Track Day out at Nelson Ledges. And I've been on that track on a motorcycle racing before, so I was familiar with it. It's a lot better, a lot smoother than when I ran on it. But I had a chance to take some laps with Terry Muich, who is one of the race directors, and last year won the autocross championship, and we were probably hitting 120, 128 on that short straightaway on his C6 Corvette, 6-speed. And he's a very, very good driver. And we got passed by the C8, which is the new Corvette. You cannot believe how wide they are, and they're extreme. Well, they're powerful, and with that mid-engine, they just squat and sit in those corners, and you know, you're just not you're not going to catch them. You
I
know,
think
they
the
send
new ones are top
or-
speed, what, 170, 180 miles an hour, somewhere around there?
I don't know, but you do hear, as with all entry models, and Carl, you could attest to this, but it seems like today is no different than back in 1960 when they brought out a new automobile. There's always teething problems, and certainly the new Corvette has had some issues with cross member in the back end, stuff like that. But that hasn't stopped people from not putting a deposit down and buying them. You know, that car initially was a 59.9. 2 years ago is when that's what they wanted to sticker it. Now, I never could find one for 59
No.
because I would have bought it. But there are some guys that are buying these Corvettes, and they put them immediately on a truck, and then you'll see them up on Craigslist or Facebook. So they buy them for 90, and they're trying to get 120, 130 out of them, and sometimes they do. But I was at the 25th anniversary of the Corvette Museum 2 years ago, and that's where I first got a chance to get in and get on the car. And I was on that track with my Corvette. It's called Track X down there in Bowling Green, and I've seen those C8s get out on that track and just was able to watch them. But that's where I got my first look at them. But I like that car, but I think if I could have one car and I could afford it, it would be that Bugatti. Starts with a V, Vixen or something.
Yeah, Venom or something. Yeah, I know which one you're
on.
That's a cool
And that's
car.
supposed to be the Mac Daddy of all Mac Daddies. And if I could afford that,
Yeah,
I'd have
about a
four-year-old
1.5 million or
girlfriend.
something like that.
You didn't hear that, Rick. I'd have a 24-year-old girlfriend. That'd be great.
Should kill ya. Should kill ya.
Or all the above, right?
Yes.
But I will say this, though, and in going back to these old cars, though, I feel bad. And I think the reason why the tuner cars came about is when you look at trying to purchase, let's just say the 555, the 55, 56, or 57 Chevy, you know, you to get a decent car to start out with, you probably got 10 or 12 grand just to start. And by the time you're done, 25 or 26. Now, Ted Guthrie just took I want to say it was a 67, Ted?
You talking about Reb's GTO?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 67.
And Ted completely restored this thing and even put badging on the seats, the little tiger and the tiger paw and stuff like that. But, I feel bad because these cars, you look at a GTO Judge, I'm telling you, you're going to spend 60 grand.
At least, yeah.
Yeah.
Up down a little bit since
to try and find even like a Monte Carlo, like a 79 Monte Carlo, where you could punch in a bigger motor and, put a 12 bolt rear end instead of a 10 and do different things. But, these cars are really approaching out of sight. It's cheaper to buy what we call a C4 Corvette, 84 to 96 is that C4 era. And you can go out there and get a heck of a nice, good driver. Maybe it's not the most pristine, but it'll be a great driver. And you can probably pick one up for $3,000 or $4,000. And you're going to have a 240 horse motor. You're going to have a 700 R4. If you step up into the 92, you'll get away from the L98s into the LT1s, which are 300 horse motors. And then if you go into the 95s, then they are LS motors. So, no, sorry, 97. But Carl could attest to that a little bit more.
A lot is how much you can afford too.
Yes.
It depends on what you can put into it. If you can put a bunch of money into it, you're going to end up with a really fast car, nice car. If you can't, you're going to end up with something that you can drive and enjoy driving. That's the whole key to the issue is driving. You
got it. Have fun with it. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, we only got a few minutes left. Rick?
How about you, Greg?
Oh,
What's
me?
your favorite? Yes, we're going to get you in there.
Well, again, I'm old school, and I'm the muscle car guy. I want a Hellcat, and I don't care.
Oh, you're talking 80 grand.
I don't care if it's a Challenger Hellcat, a Charger Hellcat, as long as it's
got the Demon.
It's got to
get the Demon.
It's got to have a 6-speed. I don't want any automatics. I don't want the paddle shifts because I'm old school. I want to shift. I want a clutch between my left foot, and I want the 6-speed. You give me that Hellcat and let me kill myself in it. Because I will die happier than anybody else.
Those are hell of cars, man. Yikes. Nice.
Yeah. Okay, Rick. Okay.
My car, believe it or not, it's going to be a Lexus. It's going to be that new 2-seater Lexus they got.
Yeah.
It is it just, I saw that and I fell in love. It's $100 grand, but I'll never own one, but
boy, you can afford that.
Yeah.
The sad thing is I can see you in that, Rick. I can really see you in that car.
The first one I saw was blue, like a darker blue with a white interior. And I go, that is me. That is me. Maybe when I hit about 10 years from now, I can afford it for about 40 grand or something. But what a car that is.
Yep. We got a couple minutes left. Carl, talk briefly about Car Care Show on 570.
Well, we've been on. This is our 31st year, and you mentioned a little bit about 100,000-mile cars when I first started the show. I had given people free gifts for 100,000-mile cars that they'd send in. Now it's 300,000.
Yeah, they junk them. You junk them at 100,000.
Things have changed in the radio. Exactly, they did. Yes. So it's come a long, long way, and I've enjoyed the ride on the radio. I really have. I've made a lot of good friends and met a lot of nice people. It's been a pleasure, and if you're out there on Saturday mornings, listen. It's from 8 to 10 every Saturday morning. You can listen to Jim and I on there. We've been there, like I said, I'll be there 31 years, and I think he's been there about 25 with me. So it's been a real pleasure. It's quite a business to be in, and hopefully we've helped a lot of people throughout the years.
Hey, I produced that show when you first started. Remember, way back when?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. I remember you walking in there the first day I walked in there. You were back in the back studio back there producing the show, and I'm
surprised it's still on after that.
I must have pushed the right buttons that day.
I had so much fun in radio. Radio was a blast for me.
It is. It still is.
Ted.
So one more question for Carl. Carl, you're on Radio 57 WKBN. What are the hours you're on? And
8 to 10 Saturday morning. 8 to 10 o'clock Saturday morning.
And you can call in and get all advice you want from Carl Slagle and what's the other guy's name, Jim?
Jim Gahagan, yes.
Jim Gahagan, okay.
My partner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Ted Guthrie, real briefly on Vintage Movement.
Well, hey, like I had said before, it's just myself and Bob Wenzel, just a couple of older guys having fun playing with these old bikes and doing what we can to turn some things out that are interesting and fun for folks to see. I did want to put in a little plug here for a book that we have coming out, The Life and Times of an Individual Named Jerry Young. Jerry is America's very first National Observed Trials champion. This book's going to be out within the next couple of months, and a fascinating read of an individual who made it happen from the ground up all by himself, real independent. And that was just a little side project for the vintage movement, and like to see some folks take a look at it.
All right, Larry, you have anything to add? We're gonna, once we're gonna ask you, Larry, and then we've got a little interview that Larry did with Jim Akal. Why can't I ever say his name?
Say
Go
that,
ahead,
yes.
Ted, say it for me.
Akazili.
Akazili.
Academic Gesundheit.
Yeah. We're going to end with that one. We'll say our goodbyes now. Larry, you want to add anything here?
Just briefly, this interview took place at Thursday night 2 weeks ago, the opening of the motorcycle exhibit, which is Roll Your Own. And it was bikes that are been put together, concept bikes or bikes that were made personal by their owners. So we talked to Jim a little bit about that. He also has a dealership called Motozilli, where he has Triumph, Yamaha, and Royal Enfield. And of course, he's a big sponsor of a lot of the women starting to get into flat track racing using Royal Enfields. He's one of the dealers that are piecing those things together. Also, with the more people getting the COVID shot and the vaccine and that, I think we're going to see a lot of things opening up in the motorcycling world. I just talked to the Daytona Beach Council, and they're going forward bigger, better than ever with, quote, social distancing. I'm waiting to see how that's going to work out on Friday night on Main Street when it's in full bore, but we'll see. And, I've got about 5 or 6 long distance rallies. I plan on going to Montana this year and a couple other places. So I look forward to it. But if you want to jump on that interview, it's with Jim Akazili from Motozilli.
All right, then we're going to wrap
Thanks,
it up.
guys.
We're going to wrap it up here. You've been listening or watching Street Scene Power Hour on Buzzsprout, all of your other favorite streaming
YouTube,
media, and Armstrong Neighborhood Channel. You can watch this at. So we're going to wrap it up. Thanks, Carl. We appreciate you coming in. Thank you.
I
Ted,
appreciate it.
for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
And we're going to wrap this up with this interview. Thanks, guys.
We'll see you down the road.
Hi, everybody. Larry Ward for Armstrong Street Scene Power Hour, and of course, the two-wheel Power Hour. Joining me right now is Jim Akazili, better known as the guy that runs Motozilli, Yamaha, Triumph, Royal Enfield. Jim, you're no stranger to the 21st edition of the Packard Museum's motorcycle exhibit. This year's theme is Roll Your Own. Tell me a little bit about the involvement you've had in the past years.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks for coming over tonight, getting ready for the opening on Saturday. Really looking forward to it. We think it's going to be a great season. A little postponed, obviously, because of the COVID and everything going on. But the selection of bikes this year is totally off the wall. Some really great stuff. Roll Your Own is the theme. So there's a lot of one-off stuff that you're not going to see anywhere else, stuff that was hand-built by particular builders and some really nice builders. A little tough getting, the stuff in here again with the COVID, but all the builders, all the enthusiasts, all the collectors came together, and everybody here at the Packard Museum worked really hard at getting a really great exhibit put together, and we're looking forward to it.
One of the things I see is one of my friends that's one of the best in the area as far as restoring something, from spokes to motor work to paint, is Kevin Hilyard. And you can see his old R27 single cylinder, I think it's a 62 or 63 BMW. But the thing that caught my eye is his Indian out there.
Yes, very nice. Yeah, there's very nice stuff from those guys. Kevin, Bob Bancroft with the hand-built custom BMW. Great story behind that. It was a barn find, and he basically bought the motorcycle for the title. He wanted the title for some other stuff he was doing, and then realized, hey, once I've got this thing, I might as well try to make something different and unique, and went out to Herdesky Brothers out in Berg Hill and got some different pieces together and built a really super cool piece. Got some automotive stuff tied into that bike as well.
Well, I'm a big fan of yours and a big fan of what you do and how you do it in the community with motorcycling and how you help out. And of course, you're the only Yamaha dealer in the area, but you're the Triumph and Royal Enfield. And you've been able to take Royal Enfield to heights that they've never seen before. I believe you're the number one dealer, east of the Mississippi right now?
Yeah, Larry, we are. We're in the top dealers. We're in the top 10 dealers in the U.S. We've been very fortunate. The bike sells, the Royal Enfield brand not only sells well to the entry-level buyer because of the price tag, but the enthusiasts, like the guys that are here tonight and the gals that are here tonight. It's a great motorcycle. It's got a lot of traditional, basic things to it. It runs really well. That 650 twin with a 6-speed transmission, fuel injected for $5,900. And now S&S is really involved, and we're involved with S&S with 865 kits, cams. We're actually working on a project now. We're going to have exchange motors where you can come in and buy a 650 infield from us, and we'll put an 865 motor in it. So, we're doing a lot with them. It's a great group of guys that I've known from back in my racing days that are now running Royal Enfield in North America. So we have a really good tie with them, and they're definitely helping us out. And the community, the motorcycle enthusiasts, they love the brand, and it just kind of fits who we are because we're enthusiasts at Motorzilli, and it kind of fits the niche of, again, who we are and what we love.
As I said on the phone yesterday, I think one of the things that makes them so easy to love is they still have that old bike, beautiful old British bike look. And anybody that's ever bought a motorcycle, you bought it because you first fell in love with the way it looks. And then you threw your leg over, and then the love affair began. And I can tell you that you guys do a terrific job. Now, you've helped out a lot of people, but now you've got a program where you've got a young lady on board. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, so Royal Enfield last year, to try to promote the 650 Twin as a basic, simple motorcycle, they got involved with the American Flat Track Series, the AFT Series, and they came out with a program that was called the BTR, Build, Train, and Race. And they got 6 girls that were influenced in the industry, and they gave them a motorcycle. The girls built the bike to race it. They trained on it, practiced on it, and then they raced at the American Flat Track Series races. Melissa Paris, some pretty well-known gals were involved in that. Fortunately, with our connection with Royal Enfield, I told them last year, we'd like to get involved with that, so they decided to do an 8-girl team. So there's 8 girls this year, and we were able to get one of the girls, Sarah Dixon, from down in Dayton, Ohio. She's a hot shoe from Ohio here. Her father, Rob Gessner, was a very fast racer back in the day. She's now got a 650 Royal Enfield. She's at home building it. We're working with S&S. We're working with Olin Suspension, Dunlop Tires, Saddlemen. And Motorzilli is going to be well represented this year in the American Flat Track Series. So we're really excited for the opportunity to be involved at that level. Kind of comes back to where we started. We got involved in the motorcycle industry because of the flat track racing when I was a young boy, and now to be able to give back to that sport. We're really looking forward to it. Tommy Duma from Tom Duma Jewelers is helping us out a little bit. Steve Carr, one of the machinists here, local from Ohio, is helping us out with some machine work on it as well.
What's going to be interesting is to see Sarah and then watch Jim wheel out an identical Royal Enfield, and he'll have his leathers on and say, hey, let's take a few spins and follow my line.
Larry, it's kind of a joke here. You kind of let the cat out of the bag, because I am building a street tracker replica, kind of what she's building. It's something myself and my sales manager, Keith McCowan, because we both ride the 650 Enfields, we love it. And let's build a street tracker similar to the ones that we have here on display in a Royal Enfield. So that's where the involvement with S&S is. They're helping us with everything from different throttle bodies to different cams to the big bore kit to special pipe. And it's going to be a really trick bike. But anybody that's listening, if you got a motorcycle license this summer, come up and ride my street tracker, ride a stock one. They're available to you, and just see what the Royal Enfield's all about.
I'll leave our listeners with one thought, Jim, and that is the next time this summer you pull up to a stoplight and you got a little bit bigger bike and you're kind of looking down at a 650 Royal Enfield twin, just better be careful that it's really a 650 twin.
Yeah. Yes, that's true, and that's where we're kind of wanting to put some sleeper motors. Where it's going to look bone stock, but it'll be an 865 instead of 650. The 650 runs really, really well. Again, we're a Triumph dealer, so we sell the standard Bonneville, which is an 865, and the 1200 Bonneville. I'm telling you, the Royal Enfield 650 twin runs all day right next to the 1200 T120.
Well, what's nice about the dealership, and we're going to close out on this, is that, if you're a young person and you're just getting in, what could be better than a sub $6,000 650 twin that you can drive just about anywhere you want to go? And then if you want to move up to a marquee, say a Triumph Bonneville, Jim's got them. If you want to get a triple, Jim's got them. If you want to go into the European Asian side, you got the Yamaha, and you got everything from big board dirt bikes and little bikes all the way up to as fast as you want to go.
No, we do, Larry. We've got a little bit of everything, and we sell what we love. I've had opportunities to bring other brands in, but we're very particular on what we bring, and we're really excited to have the three brands that we have: Yamaha, Triumph, Royal Enfield. And we've got the museum in the basement, so anybody that's listening, the Motozilli Museum is in the basement of the store. Whenever the store is open, you come downstairs. There's a lot of old vintage, not real old, but stuff from back in the 60s, kind of what you and I, Larry, grew up riding as young kids on the street and in the dirt.
All right, Jim, before we let you go, give us the hours of operation, and we'll get people up there.
So the store is open on Tuesday through Friday, 9 to 6, and then Saturday, 9 to 2. And good stop on Saturdays this time of year. Come to our store at 9, spend an hour or so at our store, then come up to the Packard Museum and look at the motorcycle event. It's a great getaway on a Saturday afternoon this time of year when we're locked down and the weather's cold.
Perfect, Jim. I look forward to it. And you know what? I'm going to get up and try out a couple of those bikes as soon as the weather breaks. So this is Larry Ward for Armstrong Street Scene Power Hour, and, of course, the two-wheel Power Hour. Thank you, Jimmy Iacozzelli, for stopping by.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks for everybody listening. I hope everybody comes up and sees us this summer.